here, and today's story is one we think you'll really enjoy. So without further ado, let's begin. I stared at the laptop screen, my jaw clenched. The GPS tracker blinked, showing Lydia's location at some trendy cafe downtown. It was 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. She was supposed to be at yoga. Damn it, Lydia, I muttered, rubbing my temples. I'd suspected something was off for weeks. Late-night classes, constant texting, and a growing emotional distance. But seeing concrete proof made my stomach churn. My phone buzzed. A text from Lydia. Class running late. Don't wait up. I almost laughed at the blatant lie. Instead, I grabbed my keys and headed out. Time to see what my darling wife was really up to. The cafe was dimly lit, trying too hard to be hip. I parked across the street, watching. There she was, sitting at an outdoor table, laughing, touching the arm of some guy I'd never seen before. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to storm over there, to confront them both. But no, I needed more information before making my move. I snapped a few photos with my phone, then drove home, my mind racing. Who was he? How long had this been going on? And more importantly, what was I going to do about it? Back at our house, our obscenely large house that I'd worked my ass off to afford, I poured myself a scotch and settled into my home office. Time to do some digging. It didn't take long to find him online. Ethan Blackwood, 32, local celebrity yoga instructor, with a carefully curated Instagram full of shirtless photos and inspirational quotes. What a joke. I was still scrolling through his social media when I heard Lydia's key in the door. Showtime. Adrian, she called out. You still up? I stepped out of the office, scotch in hand. Hey, hon, how was yoga? She faltered for just a second before regaining her composure. Oh, great. Really challenging class tonight. I bet, I said, keeping my voice neutral. You must be exhausted after all that exertion. Lydia's eyes narrowed slightly. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged, taking a sip of scotch. Nothing. Just making conversation. She stared at me for a long moment, then seemed to relax. Well, I am beat. I'm going to grab a shower and head to bed. Sweet dreams, I said, watching her go. Once I heard the shower start, I went back to my research. I needed proof. Real, solid proof that would hold up in court. Because make no mistake, there was no way in hell I was letting Lydia walk away with half of everything I'd built. The next morning, I made some calls and arranged a meeting with Frank Sutherland, a private investigator who came highly recommended. We met at a nondescript diner, away from prying eyes. Frank was a grizzled man in his 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. So, Mr. Hawthorne, he said after I'd laid out the situation, you want proof of your wife's infidelity. That's right, I replied. Concrete evidence. Photos, video, whatever it takes. He nodded slowly. And what do you plan to do with this evidence once you have it? I met his gaze steadily. Whatever I have to do to protect myself and my assets. A ghost of a smile crossed Frank's face. Understood. I'll get started right away. But I should warn you, Mr. Hawthorne, sometimes these investigations turn up unexpected results. I hope you're prepared for whatever I might find. I'm prepared for anything, I said firmly. Just get me what I need. As I left the diner, my phone buzzed. A text from my best friend and business partner, Victor. Drinks tonight? I hesitated and replied, Sure, the usual spot at 8. I needed to talk to someone about all this, and if there was anyone I could trust, it was Victor. We'd been through too much together for me to doubt him now. The bar was crowded when I arrived, but I spotted Victor at our regular table in the back. He waved me over. 2 whiskeys already waiting. You look like hell, he said as I sat down. I chuckled humorlessly. Feel like it too. I took a long sip of whiskey, savoring the burn. It's Lydia. Victor's expression turned serious. What's going on? I told him everything my suspicions, Following Lydia to the cafe, hiring the PI, he listened intently, his brow furrowed with concern. Jesus, Adrian, he said when I finished. I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I admitted, but I'm not letting her get away with this. I've worked too damn hard to let her and her boy toy take me for everything I'm worth. Victor nodded slowly. Just be careful, okay? Don't do anything rash. Maybe there's an explanation. An explanation? I cut him off, anger flaring. For what? Her lying to my face? Sneaking around behind my back. He held up his hands placatingly. I'm just saying, wait until you have all the facts before you make any big moves. You've got a lot to lose here, Adrian. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. You're right. I know. I can't believe she'd do this to me. After everything we've been through together. Victor reached across the table, clasping my shoulder. Whatever happens, I've got your back. You know that, right? I managed a small smile. Yeah, I know. Thanks, man. As I drove home that night, Victor's words echoed in my head. Be careful. Don't do anything rash. But with every passing day, every lie Lydia told, I could feel my control slipping. Something had to give, and soon. The next week passed in a blur of suspicion and barely contained rage. I went through the motions at work, but my mind was constantly on Lydia and her betrayal. Frank sent regular updates, more yoga classes that were anything but clandestine meetings at out-of-the-way cafes and parks. Finally, he sent the message I'd been waiting for. Got what you need. Meet me at the diner. I made an excuse to leave work early and raced to meet Frank. He was waiting in a corner booth, a thick manila envelope on the table in front of him. It's all here, he said without preamble as I sat down. Photos, video, phone records. Your wife's been having an affair with this Ethan guy for at least 3 months. I reached for the envelope with shaking hands, but Frank held it back. You sure you want to see this? He asked, his expression grave. Once you do, there's no going back. I met his gaze steadily. I'm sure. He nodded and handed over the envelope. I opened it, steeling myself for what I was about to see. The first photo hit me like a punch to the gut. Lydia and Ethan, locked in a passionate embrace outside some seedy motel. I flipped through the rest quickly, each image searing itself into my brain. Them laughing over dinner, walking hand in hand through the park, kissing in his car. There's video too, Frank said quietly. But I'll leave it up to you if you want to watch that. I shook my head, shoving everything back into the envelope. This is enough. I pulled out my checkbook. Thank you for your work, Mr. Sutherland. I assume this covers everything. He glanced at the amount and nodded. More than. You sure you don't need anything else? No, I said, standing up. I've got what I need. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. Now that I had proof, what was I going to do with it? Confront Lydia? Go straight to a divorce lawyer? I needed time to think, to plan my next move carefully. But as I pulled into our driveway and saw Lydia's car already there, something in me snapped. All the hurt, the betrayal, the anger I'd been holding back came rushing to the surface. To hell with careful planning. It was time for a reckoning. I stormed into the house, finding Lydia in the kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up with a smile that quickly faded when she saw my expression. Adrian, what's wrong? I laughed bitterly. What's wrong? Why don't you tell me, Lydia? How was yoga tonight? She paled slightly but kept her composure. It was fine. Why are you? Cut the bullshit. I snarled, slamming the envelope down on the counter. I know everything. About Ethan. About all of it. Lydia's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed. You've been spying on me? Damn right I have. I shot back. And it's a good thing I did, or I'd still be in the dark about my wife screwing her yoga instructor behind my back. It's not like that, Lydia protested, her voice rising. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I cut her off. I understand that while I've been working my ass off to give us this life, you've been throwing it all away for some narcissistic pretty boy. Lydia's expression hardened. Maybe if you paid half as much attention to me as you do to your precious company, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. I reeled back as if she'd slapped me. So this is my fault? You're blaming me for your decision to cheat. I'm not blaming you, she said, her tone softening. I'm just saying, we've been drifting apart for a long time, Adrian. Ethan, he makes me feel alive again. I shook my head in disgust. Spare me the justifications. I don't want to hear it. I want you out of this house. Tonight. Lydia's eyes widened in panic. What? Adrian, no. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, try to... There's nothing to work out, I said coldly. We're done. I'll have divorce papers drawn up in the morning. You can't just throw me out, she protested. This is my home, too. I have rights. I laughed humorlessly. Rights? You lost any rights you had the moment you decided to cheat. You want rights? Talk to my lawyer. I turned to walk away, but Lydia grabbed my arm. Adrian, please. I'm sorry. It was a mistake. I love you. I jerked away from her touch. Don't you dare say you love me. If you loved me, you never would have done this. Tears welled up in Lydia's eyes. What about everything we've built together? Are you really willing to throw it all away? I stared at her for a long moment, seeing not the woman I'd loved for years, but a stranger, a liar, a cheat. You threw it away? I said quietly. Not me. Now get out. I walked away, ignoring her pleas and protests. I locked myself in my office, listening as she moved around the house, gathering some belongings. Finally, I heard the front door open and close. Only then did I allow myself to break down, pouring another scotch with shaking hands. It was over. My marriage, the life I thought I had, all of it built on lies. But as the initial shock wore off, another emotion began to take hold. Determination. Lydia might have betrayed me, but I'd be damned if I let her destroy everything I'd worked for. I pulled out my phone and dialed Victor's number. Hey, I said when he answered, I need your help. It's time to go to war. The next morning, I woke early and headed straight to the office of Evelyn Green, one of the top divorce attorneys in the city. I'd called in every favor I had to get an emergency appointment. Evelyn was a sharp-featured woman in her 50s, with a reputation for being utterly ruthless in court. Perfect. Mr. Hawthorne, she said as I entered her office. I understand you're in need of my services. I nodded, taking a seat across from her desk. My wife's been cheating on me. I want a divorce, and I want to make damn sure she doesn't take me for everything I'm worth in the process. Evelyn's eyebrows raised slightly. I see. And do you have proof of this infidelity? I placed Frank's envelope on her desk. Everything's in there. Photos, videos, phone records, you name it. She opened the envelope, scanning its contents with a practiced eye. This is good, she murmured. Very good. It certainly strengthens our position. So what do we do now? I asked. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, fixing me with a steely gaze. Now, Mr. Hawthorne, we prepare for war. Your wife is going to fight this. Make no mistake. She'll try to paint herself as a victim, claim emotional neglect, possibly even abuse. I started to protest, but she held up a hand. I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying it's what she'll likely try. We need to be ready for anything. I nodded slowly. Whatever it takes. I'm not letting her walk away with a dime more than she deserves. A small, predatory smile crossed Evelyn's face. I was hoping you'd say that. Now, let's talk strategy. For the next 2 hours, we went over every detail of my marriage, my finances, the evidence against Lydia. Evelyn was thorough, leaving no stone unturned. One last thing, she said as our meeting wrapped up. I need you to start documenting everything. Every interaction with your wife, every expense, every phone call, anything that could be relevant to the case. Got it, I replied, standing up. Thanks for your help, Ms. Green. She nodded. We'll be in touch soon. And Mr. Hawthorne, try to keep your cool. I know it's difficult, but anything you do now could come back to haunt us in court. I left Evelyn's office feeling both drained and energized. The reality of what I was about to go through was daunting, but I was ready for the fight. As I drove back to the office, my phone rang. Victor. Hey, I answered. What's up? Just checking in, he said. How'd it go with the lawyer? I filled him in on the meeting, on Evelyn's warnings about what to expect. Victor let out a low whistle. Sounds like it's going to get ugly. You sure you're ready for this? I don't have a choice, I replied. Lydia made her bed. Now she can lie in it. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Listen, Adrian, I know you're hurting, but is this the way to go? Maybe if you both cooled off, talk things out. There's nothing to talk about. I cut him off. She cheated, Victor. She lied to my face for months. I'm done. He sighed. All right, man. I just hate to see it end like this. But I've got your back, no matter what. I know, I said, my tone softening slightly. Thanks. I'm going to need all the support I can get. As I hung up, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Was I being too hasty, too harsh? But then I remembered the photos, Lydia's lies, the look on her face when I confronted her. No, this was the only way forward. I arrived at the office, trying to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting. I'd built this company from the ground up, poured everything I had into it. The thought of Lydia trying to take even a piece of it made my blood boil. My assistant poked her head in around lunchtime. Mr. Hawthorne, your wife is here to see you. I tensed, then forced myself to relax. Send her in. Lydia entered, looking pale and drawn. Gone was her usual perfectly put-together appearance. Good. Adrian, she said softly, we need to talk. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my expression neutral. I think we said everything we needed to say last night. She shook her head, taking a step closer. No, please. Just hear me out. What I did, it was a terrible mistake. I know that. But our marriage doesn't have to end because of one stupid decision. I laughed bitterly. One stupid decision? Lydia, you've been lying to me for months, sneaking around, making a fool of me. That's not one decision. That's a calculated betrayal. I know, she said, tears welling in her eyes. And I'm so sorry, Adrian. Please, can we just talk about this? I made a terrible mistake, but I still love you. I stared at her, feeling nothing but cold contempt. Love? You don't know the meaning of the word. Get out of my office, Lydia. We'll communicate through our lawyers from now on. Adrian, please. Now, I said, my voice low. Lydia flinched, then turned and fled the office. I sat back in my chair, taking deep breaths to calm myself. I couldn't let her get to me. I had to stay focused, stay strong. My phone buzzed. A text from Frank. Got more info. Meet tonight? I replied quickly. 8 p.m., the usual place. The rest of the day crawled by. I buried myself in work, trying to ignore the constant ache in my chest. By the time I left the office, I was exhausted but determined. Frank was waiting at our usual booth in the back of the dimly lit bar. He nodded as I slid in across from him. What have you got? I asked without preamble. Frank leaned forward, his voice low. It's worse than we thought, Adrian. Your wife and this Ethan guy, they're planning something big. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? I've been monitoring their communications, Frank said. They're talking about framing you for something. Domestic abuse, maybe. Something that would ruin you socially and financially. I clenched my fists under the table. Those bastards. Do you approve? Frank nodded, sliding a USB drive across the table. It's all there. Texts, emails, recorded conversations. They're getting reckless, confident. They don't think you suspect a thing. I pocketed the drive, my mind racing. Thanks, Frank. Keep digging. I want to know every move they make. As I left the bar, I made a decision. It was time to go on the offensive. Lydia and her boy toy thought they could destroy me. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The next morning, I called Evelyn. I need to move faster, I told her. They're planning something big. Understood, she replied crisply. I'll have the divorce papers drawn up today. In the meantime, start documenting everything. And Adrian, be careful. Don't give them any ammunition to use against you. I spent the next few days in a state of hypervigilance. Every interaction with Lydia was carefully managed, recorded. I watched her try to provoke me, to push me into saying or doing something she could use against me. But I remained calm, detached. It all came to a head on a Friday night. I came home late from work to find Lydia and Ethan in our living room. The sight of them together in my home made my blood boil. What the hell is this? I growled. Lydia stood up, her eyes wide with fake innocence. Adrian, I didn't expect you home so early. Ethan just stopped by to save it. I cut her off. I know exactly what's going on here. Ethan stood up, moving slightly in front of Lydia. Look, man, there's no need for things to get ugly. We're all adults here. I laughed bitterly. Adults? Is that what you call sneaking around behind my back? Planning to frame me? Lydia gasped. Frame you? Adrian, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb, I spat. I know everything. The affair, your little scheme to accuse me of abuse. Did you really think I was that stupid? Ethan's face hardened. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think I do, I said, pulling out my phone. In fact, I've got proof. Want to hear it? I played a recording of Lydia and Ethan discussing their plan. Lydia's face went pale, while Ethan's flushed with anger. You've been spying on us? Lydia screeched. Damn right I have. I replied coldly, and it's a good thing I did. Now, get out of my house, both of you, before I call the police. Ethan grabbed Lydia's arm. Come on, let's go. This isn't over, Hawthorne. I watched them leave, feeling a mixture of rage and vindication. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but I'd won this round. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and strategic moves. Evelyn was worth every penny, ruthlessly dismantling every attempt Lydia and Ethan made to discredit me or gain leverage. I threw myself into work, determined not to let this mess affect my company. But it was hard, especially with Victor constantly trying to get me to talk things out with Lydia. I'm telling you, Adrian, he said one night over drinks. Maybe if you just sat down with her, worked things out. I cut him off. There's nothing to work out, Victor. She made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences. Victor sighed, shaking his head. I just hate to see you like this, man. You're not sleeping, you're barely eating. Is it really worth it? I stared at him, feeling a flicker of suspicion. Why was he so invested in me reconciling with Lydia? It's worth everything, I said firmly. I won't let them win. I won't let them take what I've built. As I left the bar that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on than I realized. I needed to be careful. I couldn't trust anyone, not even my oldest friend. The final blow came a week later. Lydia, desperate and cornered, filed a police report accusing me of domestic abuse. She showed up at the station with bruises, spinning a tale of years of control and violence. But I was ready. I had recordings of every interaction we'd had since I discovered the affair, footage from hidden cameras in our home, showing Lydia's attempts to provoke me and my calm responses. The police, presented with overwhelming evidence of Lydia's deception, had no choice but to drop the investigation. Lydia was charged with filing a false report. As I left the police station, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was over. I'd won. But as I drove home, a new determination settled over me. Winning wasn't enough. Lydia, Ethan, and anyone else involved in their scheme needed to pay. And I was going to make sure they did, no matter what it took. The morning after Lydia's failed attempt to frame me, I strode into my office with renewed purpose. My assistant, Sarah, hurried after me, a stack of papers in her arms. "Mr. Hawthorne, the divorce papers are ready for your signature," she said, placing them on my desk. I picked up a pen, a smile on my face. "Perfect timing, Sarah. Let's get this over with." As I signed my name, I felt a sense of finality. This was it, the end of my marriage, the beginning of my revenge. "Have these delivered to Lydia immediately," I instructed Sarah. "And get Evelyn on the phone. We need to move fast." Within an hour, Evelyn was seated across from me, her expression as fierce as mine. "We've got them on the ropes, Adrian," she said. "Now it's time to deliver the knockout punch. What's our next move?" I leaned forward, my voice cold. "I want to hit them where it hurts most. Their money, their reputation, everything." Evelyn nodded, a predatory glint in her eye. "Leave it to me. By the time we're done, they won't know what hit them." As Evelyn left, my phone rang. It was Frank. "Adrian, we've got a problem," he said without preamble. "Your wife and that yoga instructor? They're trying to access your business accounts." I felt a surge of anger, quickly replaced by a calm determination. "Let them try, Frank. In fact, make it easier for them. I've got an idea." Over the next few days, I set my plan in motion. With the help of my IT team, we created a series of fake accounts, making them look like they held substantial funds. Then we waited. It didn't take long. Late one night, I received an alert on my phone. Someone was attempting to transfer a large sum from one of the fake accounts. I smiled, picking up the phone to call Evelyn. "We've got them," I said. "Time to spring the trap." The next morning, I walked into a conference room where Lydia and Ethan were waiting, flanked by their lawyers. Evelyn stood by my side, a stack of documents in her hands. "What's this about, Adrian?" Lydia demanded. "We're in the middle of divorce proceedings. You can't just summon us here like." "Oh, I think you know exactly what this is about." I cut her off coldly. "Your little attempt to embezzle from my company last night." Ethan paled, while Lydia's eyes widened in panic. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. I nodded to Evelyn, who began distributing documents. "These are records of your attempted transfer," I explained, "along with a history of your access to company accounts you shouldn't have had access to." Care to explain? Their lawyers looked stricken, quickly scanning the documents. Lydia and Ethan exchanged panicked glances. "This is all a misunderstanding," Ethan began, but I held up a hand to silence him. "Save it," I snapped. "Here's what's going to happen. Lydia, you're going to sign these papers, agreeing to a divorce settlement that leaves you with nothing. Ethan, you're going to disappear. If either of you tries to fight this, I'll press charges for attempted embezzlement. Are we clear?" Lydia burst into tears, while Ethan looked like he might be sick. Their lawyers huddled together, whispering furiously. Finally, Lydia's lawyer spoke up. "We'll need time to review these documents." "You have an hour," I said firmly. "I suggest you use it wisely." As they filed out of the room, I turned to Evelyn. "Make sure everything's airtight. I want this wrapped up by the end of the day." Evelyn nodded, a satisfied smile on her face. "Don't worry, Adrian. They don't stand a chance." True to my word, by that evening, the divorce was finalized. Lydia left with nothing but the clothes on her back, while Ethan slunk away, his reputation in tatters. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt hollow, empty. Something still wasn't right. That feeling was confirmed the next day when I received a call from Frank. "Adrian, you're not going to believe this," he said, his voice tense. "I've uncovered something big. It's about Victor." I felt my stomach drop. "What about him?" "He's been in on it from the beginning," Frank said. "He's been helping Lydia and Ethan. And there's more. He's been embezzling from your company for years." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Victor? My oldest friend, my business partner. I couldn't believe it, didn't want to believe it. But as Frank laid out the evidence, I felt a cold rage building inside me. The betrayal cut deep, deeper than anything Lydia had done. "What do you want to do?" Frank asked. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Set up a meeting. Me, Victor, and the board. Don't tell him why. I want to see his face when I confront him." The next day, I sat at the head of the conference table, watching as the board members filed in. Victor was the last to arrive, a confused expression on his face. "Adrian, what's this about?" he asked as he took his seat. I stood up slowly, my gaze locked on Victor. "It's about trust, Victor. Loyalty. Things I thought you understood." Victor's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" I nodded to my assistant, who began distributing folders to each board member. "These documents outline years of embezzlement from our company. Funds siphoned off to offshore accounts. Care to guess whose name is on those accounts, Victor?" The color drained from Victor's face as he flipped through the folder. "Adrian, I can explain. Save it." I cut him off coldly. "I trusted you, Victor. You were like a brother to me. And all this time, you've been stealing from me, conspiring with my wife to destroy me." The board members murmured in shock, glaring at Victor with a mixture of anger and disgust. Victor stood up, his eyes wild. "You don't understand, Adrian. I had no choice. Lydia, I said save it." I repeated, my voice like ice. "You're done here, Victor. The board will vote to remove you immediately, and then you'll be hearing from my lawyers." As security escorted a protesting Victor from the room, I turned to address the board. "I apologize for this unpleasantness. Rest assured, steps are being taken to recover the stolen funds and prevent anything like this from happening again." The meeting adjourned, and I retreated to my office, feeling drained. The betrayal seemed endless. Was there anyone I could trust? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. About Lydia, Victor, and the truth you don't know yet." I stared at the message, a mixture of curiosity and wariness washing over me. Who could this be? And what truth were they talking about? As I contemplated my next move, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The game had changed, the stakes raised. But I was ready. Whatever came next, I would face it head on, because one thing was clear. In this world of lies and betrayal, the only person I could truly rely on was myself. I sat in my office, staring at the message on my phone. A meeting with Noah Winter, the journalist who'd been masquerading as Ethan, was set for noon. My mind raced with possibilities. What new revelations awaited me? At precisely 12 o'clock, my assistant ushered in a man I barely recognized. Gone was the carefully cultivated yoga instructor look. In its place stood a sharp-eyed professional in a crisp suit. "Mr. Hawthorne," Noah said, extending his hand. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." I shook his hand firmly. "Let's skip the pleasantries, Mr. Winter. You said you had information for me." Noah nodded, taking a seat across from me. "I've been investigating corruption and infidelity among the city's elite for months. Your wife and Victor were just the tip of the iceberg. And you thought pretending to be her lover was the best way to get information?" I asked, my tone icy. "It wasn't my first choice," Noah admitted, "but it proved effective. I've uncovered a web of deceit that goes far beyond your personal situation." I leaned back in my chair. "I'm listening." Noah pulled out a thick file. "I'm prepared to give you exclusive rights to my story. In exchange, I want your protection from any potential fallout." "Why me?" I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. "Because you're the wrong party here, Mr. Hawthorne, and because you have the resources and influence to make sure the story sees the light of day." I considered his offer for a long moment. "On one condition. The article focuses primarily on Lydia and Victor's betrayal. The rest can be background." Noah hesitated, then nodded. "Agreed." We spent the next few hours going over the details. By the time Noah left, I had a clear picture of just how deep the corruption in our social circle ran, and I knew exactly how I was going to use this information. The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting. As the members filed in, I could see the confusion on their faces. Gentlemen, I began once everyone was seated. I've called you here because we have a situation that requires immediate action. I laid out the basics of Noah's investigation, watching as shock and disbelief spread across the room. Mr. Hawthorne, one of the board members, sputtered. Are you saying that our company has been unknowingly involved in these activities? I nodded. Through Victor's actions, yes. But we have an opportunity here, a chance to get ahead of this story and position ourselves as the victims rather than the perpetrators. Another board member leaned forward. What do you propose? Full transparency, I said. We cooperate fully with the investigation. We open our books. We clean house. And we use this as a chance to rebrand ourselves as a beacon of corporate integrity. The room erupted in discussion. I let them argue for a few minutes before holding up my hand for silence. I understand your concerns, I said. But trust me, this is our best move. The story is going to break with or without our cooperation. This way, we control the narrative. Slowly, one by one, the board members nodded their agreement. By the end of the meeting, we had a plan in place. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. We hired an independent auditing firm to go through our books with a fine-tooth comb. Any employee even remotely connected to Victor's schemes was let go. We instituted new transparency policies and ethical guidelines. And through it all, I worked closely with Noah, shaping the story that would soon rock the city to its core. The day the article was published, I braced myself for the fallout, but I needn't have worried. The public reaction was overwhelmingly in our favor. My phone rang nonstop with calls from clients and business partners, all expressing their support and admiration for our handling of the situation. Our stock price, which had taken an initial hit, rebounded stronger than ever. As for Lydia and Victor, the reaction was swift and merciless. They became pariahs overnight, shunned by the very social circles they'd once dominated. I was in my office, reviewing the latest round of positive press coverage, when my assistant buzzed me. Mr. Hawthorne, there's a woman here to see you. She says she's your sister. I froze. Isabella? I hadn't seen or spoken to her in years. Send her in, I said after a moment's hesitation. The door opened, and there she was, Isabella, looking older and harder than I remembered, but unmistakably my little sister. Hello, Adrian, she said, her voice cool. It's been a while. I stood up slowly. Isabella, what are you doing here? She walked further into the office, her eyes taking in the trappings of my success. I saw the article. Quite a story. Is that why you're here? I asked. To gawk at the family scandal? Isabella's eyes flashed. I'm here because Lydia reached out to me. She's desperate, Adrian. She has nowhere else to turn. I laughed bitterly. And you thought I'd what? Welcome her back with open arms. Of course not, Isabella snapped. I came to warn you. She's not done, Adrian. She's planning something. I sat back down, suddenly tired. Let her try. I've beaten her at every turn so far. Isabella leaned forward, her voice urgent. You don't understand. I've known about her affair with Victor for months. I kept quiet, hoping. Hoping what? I demanded. Hoping it would lead to Victor's downfall, she admitted. I have my own score to settle with him. I stared at her, a new wave of betrayal washing over me. You knew? All this time, and you said nothing. Isabella had the grace to look ashamed. I was wrong. I see that now. But, Adrian, there's more to this story than you know. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meeting. Now. Your office. It's time for the truth. I showed the message to Isabella. Her face paled. It's Lydia. She's on her way here. Good, I said. It's time to end this once and for all. Within minutes, Lydia burst into my office, Victor trailing behind her. They both looked haggard, desperate. "Adrian," Lydia began, but I cut her off. "Save it," I snapped. "I don't want to hear any more of your lies." "It's not lies," Victor interjected. "There's something you need to know." Isabella stepped forward. "Let them speak, Adrian. I think we all need to hear this." I looked at the three of them, these people who had betrayed me so deeply. Part of me wanted to throw them out, to be done with all of this. But a larger part needed answers. "Fine," I said coldly. "Talk." What followed was a tangled web of revelations. Isabella admitted to her own affair with Victor years ago, which had led to our estrangement. Lydia confessed that her initial interest in me had been purely financial, but claimed she had grown to love me over time. Victor, looking more broken than I'd ever seen him, laid bare the full extent of his embezzlement and manipulation. As they talked, I felt a strange calm settle over me. These people, who I had once loved and trusted, had caused me so much pain. But sitting here, listening to their pathetic justifications, I realized something. I was free from Lydia's manipulation, from Victor's false friendship, from the weight of Isabella's unspoken resentment, free from the doubts and suspicions that had plagued me for so long. As they finished speaking, all three looked at me expectantly, waiting for my reaction, my forgiveness perhaps. I stood up slowly, my gaze moving from one to the other. "Is that all?" I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. Lydia stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Adrian, please. We can start over. I know I've hurt you, but—" "No," I said firmly. "We can't start over. There is no we anymore, Lydia. There hasn't been for a long time." I turned to Victor. "You were my best friend. I trusted you with everything, and this is how you repay that trust." Victor opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. "Don't. There's nothing you can say that will make this right." Finally, I looked at Isabella. "You're my sister, and you kept this from me. All of it." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought I was protecting you." I shook my head. "You were protecting yourself, just like always." I walked to the door of my office and opened it. "I want all of you out of my office, out of my company, out of my life." "Adrian," Lydia pleaded, "don't do this." I met her gaze steadily. "It's already done. Goodbye, Lydia." One by one, they filed out. As Isabella passed me, she paused. "What will you do now?" she asked softly. I looked at her, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. "I'm going to live my life, on my terms, without any of you in it." The door closed behind them, and I was alone. But for the first time in months, I felt truly at peace. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work with renewed vigor. The company thrived under my leadership, our reputation for integrity drawing in new clients and partners. I also started a foundation, using my wealth and influence to help others who have been victims of betrayal and financial abuse. It felt good to give back, to turn my pain into something positive. One sunny afternoon, I found myself walking through the city park. As I strolled along the path, lost in thought, I quite literally bumped into someone. "Oh, I'm so sorry," a woman's voice said. I looked up to see a pair of kind eyes and a warm smile. "No, it was my fault," I replied, returning her smile. "I wasn't watching where I was going." We got to talking, and before I knew it, an hour had passed. Her name was Sarah, and she was refreshingly honest and down to earth. As we parted ways, I felt a glimmer of something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in ages, I was looking forward to finding out. Standing in my office later that day, looking out over the city I had helped build, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had lost a lot, it was true, but I had gained something far more valuable. I had gained myself. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time, If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.